Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday morning out there. I hope the weather's wonderful and you've got a full day planned. So we're going to keep moving forward today. So welcome to today's training. Share screen. Today we are going to be talking about romantic relationships in family daycare. So look, family daycare, like no other, does have that consideration of romantic relationships. And romantic relationships, the reason why we're talking about romantic relationships and not, say, like parent-child relationships or those sorts of things, although we will, romantic relationships bring a different dynamic to any other relationship in our lives. So the premise of today's presentation is really to make sure that your loved ones are protected and safe. It's not about thinking that everybody's sinister. It is just about making sure you have the proper processes in place to make sure that your romantic partners, everybody, is safe in your service. Okay, so that's what we're doing today. So welcome. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about me. So my name's Jodie Signorino, and I've worked in the education and care sector for over 30 years, 35 years or so. I've focused on governance and leadership for the past 16 years, and I specialise in family daycare. I hold early childhood qualifications, I hold human services qualifications, training qualifications, and am partway through a master's. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we all meet or view or see each other on right across this beautiful land of ours, because we are going Australia-wide, and acknowledge my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. So thank you. Okay, don't forget, while you're here, make sure that you subscribe and put on the notifications, because there is a new training every Saturday morning at 11:30. So make sure you know what's up there and what you can share amongst your team or what you can share amongst your networks. And don't forget, if ever you want anything, you can always pop in something into the comment section. If you want a video, feel free to reach out if you've got an issue and I can address those for you. So let me know, but make sure you subscribe so you know what you're going on. Okay, today I'm going to cover off a few different things for you. Now, you do know that as a governance advisor, I work at that approved provider level. So there's a lot of processes and practices that I help approved providers put in place in accordance with each type of the legislation that we work under. But one of the things that I talk to mostly or a lot in family daycare is around how they monitor educators, because the approved provider does hold the responsibility and does hold the service agreements. So how can we monitor educators? One of the things that I talk about with family daycare approved providers is monitoring the particularly romantic relationships in educators' homes, because they can bring a different dynamic to the educator. They can have a fantastic, and more often than not do have a fantastic influence and support and advocate for the educator. But sometimes that relationship can be detrimental to the educator, therefore the children, and therefore the service. So these are I'm going to give you some of the tips that I talk to approved providers about. We are going to address some risks to romantic relationships in family daycare, and I am going to give you some strategies towards the end, how you can make sure your partner is protected. Okay, all right, so let's keep going. All right, now responsibilities and risks. As I said, the approved provider does hold the responsibility to have the processes and all processes and procedures in place to protect children from harm and hazard. So that's ultimately what their role is. So that's why they have all the policies and all those sorts of things. Approved providers need to have processes in place to recruit you and to register you. So they also have processes in place to screen residents in family daycare homes, educator assistants, those sorts of things. So they have all of those, they should have all of those procedures in place to make sure that people are screened to be fit and proper in the presence of children. However, the risks that we see with family daycare partners, let's say, or romantic relationships, is sometimes that person may come from a very different sector and they have no understanding of the education and care legislation, and therefore they may not really grasp the obligation that the family daycare educator holds, or why some of the things, the processes or some of the reporting or some of the things that a family daycare educator does. They may not understand that. And because they are in a position of influence, You may have a partner that's saying, why do you need to do that? You don't need to do that. Oh, just do it this way. Don't be so fussy about that. So that's why we do want to highlight the risk of this relationship, purely because of its influence. So depending on the dynamic of any personal relationship can depend on the influence that that person has over the education and care program and the educator, obviously. So that's what we want to talk about today. So some of the risks with all your residents, but your romantic partners, that you could be potentially influenced by is some of the language that they may use. So we know it's really easy to say no swearing when there's children in care, but there could be other language, there could be terminology that may not be appropriate for an educational program. We want our partners to understand the regulatory framework in which a family daycare educator is bound by and measured by and has to work in accordance with. So we want them to understand that they, if you don't, as the family daycare educator, implement all of those regulations, that you could actually be in breach and there could be problems with your registration. There's a whole range of issues that could fall out of that. Also influence over resources. We know how sensory play, messy play, all those sorts of things are really engaging for children. We know that the benefits of those types of activities that children experience. So we need our romantic partners to understand what are the benefits of early childhood development. Why do we do what we do? Why do we let them make certain choices? Why do we let them, try and develop their independence skills, all those sorts of things. We also need our partners to support and know our operational costs, so what that is. So if we do need to spend money, that we know that that's really okay, why they do that, or whatever that looks like. Some family daycare educators, their romantic partners are not part of that business aspect. Some there are, so it really does depend on each individual educator how they do that. And again, influence. What is that influence your romantic partner is having on your business? And is that useful, helpful, those sorts of things. Now, relationship dynamics. Now, most of us have all been in some kind of romantic relationship at one point, and some of us even have horror stories about when I was with that person, this is what I did. So we do know that each romantic relationship brings a whole new set of dynamics. It brings a whole spectrum of emotions, a spectrum of influence. So we know that those relationships are very particular. We also know that many people who are in a relationship, they sometimes can't see those dynamics themselves because they're so close into that relationship. So sometimes it's difficult to see the influence or the impact your partner may be having on your business. And sometimes, because it is that romantic relationship, it is actually difficult to address that with somebody and say, hey, this is my business. This is what I need you to know. This is how I need you to behave. This is what I need you to do, kind of thing. So sometimes it can be a challenge to raise any issues about a relationship that could be impacting your business. And if you do need support, if you are in a relationship that is maybe borderline toxic or is toxic, there are many supports out there to get some help. And go to your service provider first if you feel like you need anything, and they might have some resources to help you out or put you in connection with anybody. But today we're not talking about, we're talking about those day-to-day influences. Okay, so almost always, in nearly every case I've dealt with almost always, romantic partners are the biggest advocate for the family daycare educator. They are the ones that come in after they've done their work and they help the family daycare educator pack up or put things together, or they might act as an educator assistant and watch the children while the educator runs the other children to school. So in most cases, it is a real supportive role, and it is a role that brings so much to your business and to your families and to the children. So I've heard of so many family daycare educators that them and their partners have built relationships with those families and long-term relationships with those families. So we really know that happens. And often having that person that's on your side, that person that is your advocate, that person that is helping you with your business, it actually does complement what you do, and it is one of the pillars that keeps you operating, keeps your business up there, keeps you motivated, keeps you going forward. So we know all of those benefits, and often I've heard so many educators say, like, I couldn't do it without them. If they weren't here helping me, it would be a very different story, and I wouldn't be able to be as successful as I am. So we do know the impact that relationships have. So what I am going to say to you, and you know that I speak to family daycare educators all of the time about the benefits of having business skills and what that looks like for you. Now, if we go back to what I originally said about protecting your partners and your residents or your children even, protecting them so that they never become accused of anything, or that they know the legislation so that they can't become accused of anything. So we really want our romantic partners to be inducted. Now, that is a skill that most business owners need to have, that induction process of making sure that somebody that's involved in your program is fully aware of the obligations, is fully aware of the requirements that you have to meet, is fully aware of early childhood development, and is fully aware of what teaching strategies you have in place and why you have those in place. And that's not to say that you have to say to your romantic partner all the time, oh, this is my program and this is what I'm going to do. But it's just about giving them a context, of what your work involves. And because in many cases, with our romantic partners in family daycare, they're there with us much of the time that we are delivering our educational program, or they're coming in at the end of it. And sometimes that end of it can be worse because the end of the day can be a little bit stressful and busy and all those sorts of things. So inducting your family into your business is really vital to have an induction program. So talking about an induction program, how would you do that? So really you need to prioritise what it is that your family need to know. So the first thing I'm going to say is legislation. You are bound by a lot of legislation. You're bound by legislation under the Education and Care Services National Framework, and you're bound by legislation under the Family Assistance laws. So there is a lot of you have to do's, whether it sort of doesn't, whether you don't want to or not kind of thing. There's a lot of legislation that you need to meet. So prioritising what you need to tell your romantic partner, gathering the resources that you need. So you might have to say, well, you know, you don't have to give them the framework or anything like that, but if you do need to support what you're telling them, or support further information, or support further understanding, there is plenty of resources out there that you can share with your partner or family members so that they do really understand and grasp and can contextualize why it is what you do. When you are doing an induction program, it's important with any induction program that you do have a time frame around that. So I recommend 3 months for when service providers induct educators. That 3-month window is what I recommend for that. For your family, inducting your romantic partner into your business, you might do that over a week or 2 weeks. That's really up to you. So you've got to design that based on your audience, which in this case is your romantic partner. So, you know, what do they need? What have they grasped? What do they need to grasp any further? Anything along those lines? And you know your partner probably better than anybody else. So what is that? So that's why it's up to you to design that program for them, to make sure that you can sit back and you can honestly say, and your records show that, yes, I have inducted all of the people in my home into this, and this is what I've covered. So I've covered the legislation, I've covered the quality framework, I've covered the costs, I've covered this, I've covered that. And then we always say, you know, knowledge is power kind of thing. So when your partner is fully informed about your obligations, your spending, your costing, your all of this, whatever you want to share with them so that they get it, and they have that knowledge, that would be easier to bring those two worlds together too, and further strengthen that relationship that does have an impact on your day-to-day work. So making sure, and this is where I talk all the time about business skills for educators. So some of it is around these other things, I talk all the time about your rates and setting your rates and those sorts of things. So make sure you watch those videos if you need to. Now, if you do need to get in touch, phones are probably the worst way for me because I'm often online or I'm recording training or I'm out on site, those sorts of things. If you do want to get in touch, you can just jump onto my email, go to the contact page, and you can pop any question or any suggestion. If you want a video done, if you want something particular addressed from a governance perspective, more than happy to do a video and pop it up here for everybody. So that's how you do it. So thank you, everybody. So work on your induction programs, make sure that everybody's on board. You know where your partners know where they can find additional information. They're aware of your obligations. So making sure that we strengthen this sector as best as we can, and we utilise our partners as best as we can. And as I said, often they are our greatest advocate, they are our greatest support. So we definitely want to keep those people in our lives safe. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll talk to you again next Saturday. See ya. Bye. Now I've got to turn off the share and all that. See ya. Have a great weekend. Bye.